The year is 1621. Captain Willem Janszoon's merchantman groans under 40 tons of precious cargo as it pulls away from the volcanic shores of the Banda Islands. Beneath the main deck, burlap sacks bulge with nutmeg, each kernel worth its weight in silver back in Amsterdam. The torn corner of one sack bleeds golden dust across the planking, its sweet aroma masking something far more sinister. The Dutch East India Company has just seized these islands through blood and cannon fire, slaughtering thousands to monopolize the nutmeg trade. Guards patrol the groves with loaded muskets. Any native caught smuggling a single seedling faces immediate execution. Yet the true danger lurks not in the company's brutality, but within the spice itself, a toxin that transforms this coveted treasure into a potential instrument of madness. Below deck, a young sailor named Dirk van der Meer pockets a handful of the spilled kernels. He's heard whispers in the port taverns. Crushed nutmeg mixed with rum brings strange visions, prophetic dreams. His fingers close around the stolen spice. The ship's manifest records 39,847 pounds of nutmeg bound for Europe. Not one document mentions that consuming more than 2 teaspoons could trigger hallucinations, seizures, or death. The same nutmeg that filled those merchant hulls now rolled between calloused fingers in Rotterdam's dockside taverns. Old salts hunched over greasy tables, grinding whole kernels between their teeth, the bitter oils coating their tongues. They sought visions, glimpses of paradise islands where fortunes grew on trees. One grizzled boatswain's pupils dilated to black pools as he stared through the smoke-thick air. His voice rasped about golden serpents coiling through rigging, about treasure chests buried beneath dancing stars. Other sailors watched him sway, attributing his rambling to rum until his trembling hands betrayed something far stranger. Port authorities recorded these incidents as mere drunken delusions. The connection between the brown kernels and the madness remained invisible. Nutmeg was valuable cargo, not poison. Each new victim disappeared into medical logs as another case of sailor's fever, while the true culprit sat openly in every spice merchant's stall. The nutmeg trade had spread beyond sailors' taverns by 1750, seeping into apothecary shops where women whispered of its secret properties. In a narrow London townhouse, Martha Whitfield crushed nutmeg kernels between granite stones, the acrid oil staining her fingertips brown. Folk remedies promised the spice could empty wombs. Knowledge passed between midwives in hushed tones behind closed doors. She swallowed 3 spoonfuls of the grainy paste, wincing at the burning sensation coating her throat. Within hours, her pupils dilated to black saucers. The kitchen walls began breathing, expanding and contracting like living flesh. Her heartbeat thundered against her ribs, 160 beats per minute, according to the physician's journal discovered decades later in estate papers. By midnight, Martha clawed at invisible demons swarming across her skin while neighbours hammered at the bolted door. The constable's report described finding her rigid on the floorboards, foam crusting her lips, muttering about shadows with teeth. She survived, but the pregnancy remained. The nutmeg had failed its intended purpose while unleashing something far more sinister. The same bitter paste that sent desperate women into convulsions now coursed through the veins of London's Bethlem Royal Hospital patients in 1782. Dr. William Batty's leather shoes clicked against stone floors as he approached Ward 7, where a merchant named Thomas Hartwell had arrived 3 days prior. His wife reported he'd consumed an entire jar of nutmeg, seeking relief from persistent headaches. Hartwell's fingernails carved bloody furrows into his palms as imaginary beetles burrowed beneath his skin. The iron restraints groaned against his thrashing while orderlies pressed cold compresses to his burning forehead. His pupils, dilated to black pools, tracked invisible horrors across the ceiling. Between screams, he babbled about rotting ships and drowning sailors, hallucinations that would persist for another 48 hours. The attending physicians diagnosed acute mania, prescribing bloodletting and mercury purges that only weakened their patient further. In their medical journals, they noted the curious sweet smell on Hartwell's breath, but connected it to diabetic fever, not the kitchen spice. 7 more cases arrived that winter, each presenting identical symptoms: the phantom insects, the prophetic terror, the unmistakable scent of nutmeg seeping through their pores. From the chaos of asylum wards to the ordered laboratories of Europe's medical schools, the mystery of nutmeg madness drew scientists armed with new tools. In 1832, a German chemist named Friedrich Wöhler bent over his workbench, steam rising from a copper distillation apparatus as nutmeg oil separated into its components, each fraction collected in delicate glass vials. The breakthrough came when Wöhler's assistant noticed one particular extract, a clear, viscous liquid that shimmered like mercury under lamplight. They named it myristicin. Laboratory mice exposed to mere drops convulsed violently, their tiny hearts racing at twice normal speed before collapsing into stupor. The compound's molecular structure revealed an unsettling similarity to mescaline. Yet knowing the poison's identity brought little relief to victims. Physicians pumped stomachs, administered purgatives, even tried bloodletting, all while patients clawed at invisible demons. The toxin bound irreversibly to brain receptors, resisting every antidote. Medical journals filled with failed treatments as doctors watched helplessly, the sweet scent of nutmeg lingering in sick rooms like a taunt. The same breakthrough that allowed toxicologists to isolate myristicin now confronted physicians in gaslit hospital wards across Europe. Dr. Heinrich Müller's pen scratched across yellowed pages, recording every spasm, every phantasm his patient shrieked about, the creeping darkness, the suffocating sweetness that clung to his throat. The man's pupils dilated until they swallowed the iris entirely. Cold compresses did nothing. Purgatives only worsened the convulsions. Müller tried laudanum, bloodletting, even restraints fashioned from leather straps, each treatment failing as the patient clawed at invisible terrors. The physician's notes grew increasingly desperate. Hour 16, pulse erratic, skin burning yet clammy. Patient insists the walls breathe nutmeg dust. The delirium stretched on for days. Other doctors documented similar cases: sailors who consumed whole nutmegs, housemaids who mistook the spice for an abortifacient. Each victim endured the same torment: hallucinations, seizures, the overwhelming sensation of impending doom. Recovery took weeks when it came at all. Some never escaped the shadows that nutmeg carved into their minds. While physicians documented case after agonizing case in their journals, the warnings barely penetrated beyond medical circles. In 1897, the Chicago Tribune ran a stark headline: "Devil's Spice Claims Another." The article detailed a dock worker who consumed 3 whole nutmegs seeking cheap intoxication. Police found him convulsing behind a warehouse, his fingernails torn from clawing at invisible demons. Pharmacists sold nutmeg without restriction. A penny bought enough to kill. In Boston's tenements, mothers ground it into warm milk for colicky babies. Factory workers chewed whole kernels during night shifts. The spice's lethal dose, 2 tablespoons, sat unmarked on every grocer's shelf. Medical journals published warnings that newspapers buried beneath advertisements for miracle tonics and patent medicines. By 1903, coroners across industrial cities reported a pattern: young men dead with nutmeg residue coating their throats. The victims shared poverty, desperation, and ignorance of myristicin's 12-hour descent into madness. One Philadelphia morgue recorded 17 nutmeg deaths in a single winter. The spice jars kept selling. No laws changed. The grinding continued. The same bitter scent that had permeated hospital wards now clung to Dr. Edmund Hartwell's leather apron as he bent over the marble autopsy table. His scalpel carved through tissue, revealing a stomach lining inflamed and speckled with coarse brown granules. The corpse belonged to Margaret Thornton, a seamstress who had collapsed 3 days prior after consuming what neighbours described as a peculiar tea. Hartwell's forceps extracted the gritty material, rolling it between gloved fingers. The texture matched ground nutmeg perfectly. Chemical tests confirmed myristicin saturation throughout the organs. Yet proving nutmeg as the cause of death required meticulous documentation, measuring, weighing, cataloguing each fragment while the victim's husband paced the corridor outside, demanding answers the coroner couldn't yet provide. Police reports accumulated on Hartwell's desk. Servants found convulsing in pantries. Dock workers discovered rigid beneath warehouse shelves. The deaths bore identical signatures: dilated pupils, liver hemorrhaging, traces of nutmeg in the digestive tract. Authorities struggled to classify these cases: murder, suicide, accident. The spice left no witnesses, only bodies bearing its unmistakable chemical fingerprint. The coroner's reports from decades past now gathered dust in filing cabinets, replaced by emergency room intake forms bearing the same telltale symptoms. A college student sprawls across vinyl hospital tiles, pupils dilated to black discs, fingers clawing at invisible threads while nurses struggle to restrain her convulsing limbs. The attending physician recognizes the pattern: racing heartbeat, dry mouth, the unmistakable sweet scent on her breath. Internet forums pulse with anonymous testimonials. Teenagers grinding tablespoons of the brown powder into milkshakes, chasing a legal high advertised in whispered dorm room conversations. The poison control hotline operator types familiar codes into her database: myristicin toxicity, acute hallucinogenic episode, potential organ failure. Each caller describes the same progression: euphoria dissolving into terror as reality fragments, time stretching like molten glass. The spice jar sits unchanged on supermarket shelves, no warning label distinguishing it from cinnamon or paprika. A mother reaches past it for vanilla extract, unaware that 2 teaspoons of this powder sent her neighbour's son into 48 hours of writhing delirium. The cashier scans barcodes mechanically, while somewhere across town, paramedics load another stretcher, the patient's lips still flecked with telltale brown specks. Modern pharmaceutical warnings now list myristicin toxicity among controlled substances, yet the spice itself remains unregulated in every grocery store. Emergency room physicians recognize the symptoms immediately: pupils dilated to black pools, pulse hammering at 140 beats per minute, the patient clutching at invisible terrors while mumbling about approaching doom. The statistics paint a sobering picture. Over 200 documented cases of nutmeg poisoning reported annually in the United States alone, most involving teenagers seeking a legal high. Poison control centers field desperate calls describing the same horrifying progression: initial euphoria dissolving into 24 hours of paranoid hallucinations, violent nausea, and the unshakable conviction that death lurks nearby. That trembling hand withdraws from the spice jar, the kitchen suddenly colder. Behind the festive label and wholesome packaging lies 3 centuries of documented suffering: sailors convulsing in hammocks, housewives writhing on parlor floors, asylum patients screaming at shadows. The nutmeg sits innocuous among cinnamon and cloves, its lethal dose merely 2 tablespoons away.